Hey SLP, it's Chris Coons again, your 2020 Summer Leadership Project Director. I want to talk to you just for a minute about church. And the way I want to do this is just by reading a passage with you, pointing out some observations, and then taking you through a few thoughts that I have this summer as we enter into the next 5 weeks of project. So the passage I want to read to you is Hebrews 10, verses 19 to 25. So it's a little bit longer, so try to stay with me. Here's what it says. Therefore, brothers, since we have confidence to enter the holy places by the blood of Jesus, by the new and living way that he opened for us through the curtain, that is, through his flesh, and since we have a great high priest over the house of God, let us draw near with a true heart, in full assurance of faith, with our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience, and our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. So here's just a couple observations. Number one, there's a lot in here, and it's probably pretty confusing if you're not familiar with the Old Testament. And I would love to actually sit down and walk you through it, but we don't have time for that right here. One thing that I do want to point out, though, is how often you hear words in this passage like we, us, our. I counted at least 9, and more if you count the one another's, which I would. But there's a lot of talk about how it's us, it's we, it's our. And ultimately, I think that points to the fact that the Christian life is meant to be done together, is meant to be done in community with one another. And it's going to fail if you don't have one another, if you're not leaning and interacting with one another. So I want you to think about that as we talk about church this summer. So in our time, church looks very strange, but the need for it is glaringly obvious. Church is not so much about a building or a set of rituals or an order of a worship service. It's much more about a people rallying around, unifying, and celebrating the person of Jesus and the message of the Bible. And we do this through worshiping through songs. We do this through worshiping by hearing the word preached to us. We do this by just interacting with one another. And that's what church is about. And if you're not doing that, then I would argue that you're not really doing church. So what we'd like for you to do is to consider that as you think about how to do church this summer, and think about how to make church a part of your summer leadership project experience. So here's 3 things that I want to offer you that being together and interacting with people helps us do with regard to our Christian walk. The first one, it gives assurance of our faith. So if you look at verse 22, it tells us this. We are forgetful people, okay? We are people that often forget the truth that the Bible is trying to explain to us over and over and over again. We often forget how we are saved by grace and by the love of God, not by working it out with our own strength. And because of that, we need people to speak into us and give us assurance of the faith that we have. Also, Satan is tricky, crafty, sly, and powerful. And he can easily tell us lies that sound so true and cause us to believe that our faith is not real, and can cause us to doubt our faith in Jesus. So again, we need people to help give us an assurance of faith. Next, if you look at verse 23, it helps us hold on to the confession of our hope. It helps us hold on to our faith in what we believe. So this is different from giving us assurance, but it helps us remind us of the thing that we believe. It helps us give us a passion for the thing that we believe. And again, we're forgetful people. We need to be told 100 different times, 100 different ways, from 100 different points in the Bible, what it is that the Bible has been telling us all along, what the story that God has been telling from Genesis to the present day. We need to be told over and over and over again. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that have said, man, I feel like I've just lost my passion. I've lost my desire to walk with God. And one of the first questions I ask them is, how much time are you spending around God's people? And how much time are you spending alone? Or how much time are you spending around people that don't share your beliefs? And that's usually the first thing that people say is, I'm not spending time around God's people. If you spend time around God's people, they're going to remind you of what you believe. They're going to help you hold fast to that confession of faith, and they're going to help you walk it out and live it out in a daily basis. The third thing, if you look at verse 24, it helps us stir us up to love and good works. So maybe that's through just giving you an idea that someone else is trying that stirs you up and says, hey, you know what? I think I might be able to do that as well. It also could come in the form of finding someone that has a similar passion as you do. As you start talking with people in God's body and you realize, you know what? There's someone else that is passionate about caring for the poor. There's someone else that's passionate about adoption and caring for orphans. And as you connect together, you realize that a problem that seems way too big for you to take on yourself is something that when you're conjoined together, you can attack it and love God and love your neighbor in ways that you wouldn't be able to on your own. It stirs you up to love and good works. Or it could just be encouragement to be bold. Maybe you know that God is calling you to something, but you're just a little too fearful to take it on. But by spending time with God's people, you're pressed into action. You're given encouragement to be bold and live out your faith in the way that you know you're called to. All of these things can happen. And ultimately, we need all of these things to be done for us. But more importantly, I want you to think, how can I be doing this for others? How can I help give assurance of faith to a brother or sister in Christ that's struggling? How can I help to stir someone else up to love and good works? How can I help someone hold fast to their confession? That's what church is all about. It's not just about how you receive the blessings of God's body and God's community, but how can you be a part of blessing God's body and God's community yourself? So our desire is that for the rest of your life, you would be involved in a local church community where you can experience these things. We don't want you to be in Ohio and talk about doing church in New York or Philadelphia or Los Angeles or Florida. We want you to be involved in a community, a church community right next door to you, right in the very place that you are living and serving and working for the rest of your life. So if you belong to a local church already, then by all means, we want you to attend that church in whatever way that they are offering this summer, whether that means in-person services as restrictions lift and it's more safe just to be together, or whether that means online. We want you to attend that local church that you already belong to. But again, you're not really being a part of the church if all you're doing is watching on a TV screen and then going about your week. So being a part of church means you're attending, whether it be virtual or in person, but you're also interacting with people that are a part of that body. So if that's something that you can do and you want to do it at your own local church, by all means, we want to encourage that. However, if you don't belong to a local church or you don't belong to a church where you can actually do that and interact with people because you don't know anybody in that church, we want to encourage you to attend church with us this summer. So if you are someone who lives in Columbus or attends Ohio State University, we want to encourage you to go to Northwest Presbyterian Church. They offer services online. You can go to npcdublin.org for more information on this church. Their worship services are Sunday at 2:30, and they do them live on a YouTube channel. So again, if you go on YouTube and just type in Northwest Presbyterian Church, the first thing that pops up, that's what you want. Just click on that, subscribe, and attend church with them this summer. That way you'll be able to interact with other people from Columbus or other people from Ohio State and talk about how church is impacting you and shaping your faith this summer. If you go to Bowling Green or you live in the Bowling Green area, we want to encourage you to attend Gateway Church online. And again, this is, you can go to gatewayepc.org. They have live worship services that you can stream Saturdays at 6 p.m., Sundays at 9 a.m., or Sundays at 10:45 a.m. So they have a lot of different options for you to live stream. You can do it through Facebook, you can do it through YouTube, you can watch the Vimeo feed later throughout the week. But again, we want you to think about attending church and interacting with other people that will be attending church. So the staff at those two locations will definitely be attending church this summer. So they're two people that you can talk to, or those are people that you can talk to at those two different locations. But again, most of our staff and students are going to be attending church at one of those two places this summer. We want to really encourage you to be a part of that this summer as well. And ultimately, that's all I have. We really want you to view church as something that is an important part of your summer leadership project experience this summer. But we also hope that church is something that you engage in a local body for the rest of your life. SLP is starting very soon, and we can't wait to get started.